Hello, and welcome to the Fearless Podcast, where we empower Iowa women to succeed in work and life.
I am your co-host for the Fearless Podcast, LaDrina Wilson, and today I am super excited to chat with you all about women in leadership roles. If you want to be in a leadership role, or if you simply aspire to kind of think about how you might show up in a leadership role, or learn a little bit from other people's perspectives if you are in one, some people can be kind of afraid to get started or afraid to kind of elevate their leadership. Today's episode is about taking that next step. We're talking to women who are in charge and know what it means to really be a leader. This Fearless episode is sponsored by On With Life. Do you know you have access to world-class neurorehabilitation right here in Iowa? The On With Life team provides comprehensive care for individuals recovering from neurological injury or diagnosis. Learn more about On With Life's services at onwithlife.org. So as I said today, we have a couple of dynamic women who are joining us. And when I think about how these women came to mind for today's episode, it really makes me think about how women don't just find solutions to their own issues. They really do think about problem solving at scale. So we might see an issue and we'll jump in, fix it for ourselves, but then also open the door for other people. And that's what these women have done today. So first off, I'm going to introduce Deidre DeJear. She is the president and CEO of Oakridge Neighborhood, Iowa's largest affordable housing complex dedicated to enriching diverse communities through housing and support services. From 2008 until 2024, she owned Kaleo. Did I pronounce that right, Deidre? Kaleo.
I'm saying my own business wrong. Kaleo. It's Kaleo.
Kaleo. You know, it's funny that you said that because my business gets mispronounced, and because it's a common mispronunciation, sometimes I'll correct people and say the wrong name too. So Kaleo Enterprises, and that's an agency that works with clients on developing and implementing financial education and small business development throughout the state of Iowa. She was also the 2022 Democratic nominee for Iowa governor and has managed political campaigns. That is remarkable. I can remember when all of that was transpiring and how inspiring it was for women to see women like you kind of pursuing that aspiration. We also have Anya Jensen, who is going to be joining us. Anya is a barefoot shoe enthusiast who has turned her passion for comfortable footwear into multiple businesses. We could go on and on about comfortable footwear because for me, I've entered the place of 40 plus and my shoes it's like they're turning on me. Anyway, you run a company that has comprehensive barefoot shoe wear, correct?
That's correct.
Awesome. So her website, Anya's Reviews, she also has a retail store, Anya's Shop, and you have an annual event, the Barefoot Shoe Expo, and you run this business alongside your husband, Justin, correct?
That's correct.
Wonderful. Anya's been a leader in this movement towards natural foot care and minimalist shoes since 2018. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining us. I am excited to learn a little bit more about you and your respective kind of backgrounds and how you approach leadership. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to think about, and I'll start with you, Deidre, is when you think about your younger self, what would your younger self think of you now in the leadership role that you're in?
That's a really good question. You know, the younger me was very, very curious. I would often be seen around my great aunts and uncles rather than my cousins. And I was just talking to someone about this the other day. I was always in office settings because I was hanging out with people at work and I was so comfortable in the office setting. And so when I think about what the younger me how the younger me would think of me, I think she'd be proud, but I also know me and I know she'd want to be involved. She'd want to be helping. She'd want to be figuring out how she could add value. Also, another important part of the younger me that I was actually thinking about in preparation for this was the younger me also really liked architecture. And if you remember like going to Toys R Us or any buffet, you would see like this rack of housing magazines I was the kid that was grabbing those magazines, reading through them. I even drew out my own house to scale. And so when I think about some of the work that I'm doing, encroaching on building a multifamily with commercial complex, man, that little me would be like, how can I get involved? Like, let me help, let me do something. And so she's cheering me on in her own way, but she's still living in me as well.
Yeah. Well, I love to see how that curiosity takes shape in the intersection of kind of these interests that you have, and how they parlay into actual kind of career decisions, and sometimes not even intentionally. So I love hearing that kind of version.
Would have never imagined myself in this space at all. But the fact that I'm here, man, it definitely pays tribute to some of my dreams when I was a kid that kind of fell by the wayside because I didn't find the connectivity to fulfill those dreams back then.
Yeah. So Anya, similar, if the younger you were looking at you now, what might she think about the leadership role that you're doing?
She would be very surprised, for sure. I was a very quiet child and always really diminutive, learned what my role was and tried to stay inside of it. So I would be a little bit shocked at the ways that I've grown and how I pushed myself to get out of that. But I also, as a kid, I had a lot to say. I just didn't have the voice to say it. So part of it makes a lot of sense, but I had to overcome some of those, inhibitions in order to raise my voice. So it would be both unsurprising and surprising, I think, to my younger self.
Yeah. Well, let's lean into that, especially kind of this dynamic of maybe getting over these inhibitions, right? So when did you realize that you were called to lead or to create your business?
So I was really struggling with foot pain. I actually had foot pain as a kid, and I just had it my whole life. I had foot issues, and I have lax joints. I had super flat feet and kind of prone to injury, just genetically have hypermobility. And so it was my life story, right? So it was something that I was living, and I was led to the industry because of severe foot pain. I wasn't able to walk. I had a newborn at home that I couldn't carry. And I was like so broken inside because I was too young to have these issues, or at least that's what I was telling myself. I was like, how did I find myself here? So I felt called because of the transformative experience that I went through. I was broken. I found this resource about strengthening your feet and changing your footwear. And I dove into it, and I learned it the hard way by trying things and failing. And then I realized that there was this huge wide open space where nobody was speaking about people like me. People were talking about athletes, people who were wanting to run marathons. And I'm like, well, I want to take care of my child. I want to go to the zoo with my family. I want to just live a life that is full. And people weren't talking about that as it relates to footwear and foot strength and foot rehabilitation. So I saw this opening, and I guess ultimately I felt called to fill it. And so I started with the blogging and being active in online spaces, and kind of was taken aback at the traction that I was getting. And words are that's my thing. That's always been, I've avid reader, avid writer my whole life. And so the online space where I didn't have to actually say them out loud, I could write them and then people could read them. As much as social media can be, a bit of a cesspool, it was so valuable to me to be able to reach people in a way that was accessible to me and also comfortable for me. And it took a few years, but people were really responsive to it. And I remember the first podcast I did, I was just like sweating So yeah. I'm like so glad that I was not next to somebody, because I was like, BO. I mean, it was just bad. I was so nervous. And it was always in the service of, I want to save other people from going through what I went to. So I'm willing to put myself out there if I can achieve that. And now.
So you started Anya's reviews at first to just like kind of get the word out there, and then you parlayed that into a business.
That's correct. Yeah. It took a couple of years. And I again, with the whole like just being generally diminutive and feeling like, I'm just going to like minimize my role, I did not expect it to be a business. And it was actually my husband who was like, did you know you can monetize a website? Like you can like do things with this. People are reading your work, and people want to hear from you, and they're buying the things that you're recommending. And so he kind of gave me a little bit of a boost, and I started doing basic SEO, and I applied to affiliate programs. I approached brands that I worked with and asked if they would be willing to do an affiliate program, because I didn't want to ask for money. I actually still don't do any kind of advertising, but I thought, let me prove myself to you. Let me send customers to you, and then you can just pay me for whatever referrals I send.
Yeah.
And within a year, I was earning enough to quit my other job. I was supporting my husband going through grad school. And I should say quit my other job. It was actually another business that we owned, that just by doing basic SEO and basic things, taking myself a little bit seriously.
Yeah.
And it was a shock to me that I could do that.
Yeah.
That I could earn income for my family doing something that I was passionate about.
I think what is most compelling about, like, that really stands out to me and is kind of a theme across multiple conversations that we have, even with women in leadership, is this whole idea that, like, I didn't want to ask for money. Somebody had to kind of push me a little bit, or like open my eyes to kind of what was already your purpose. So it's not lost on me how big of a leap that is for people, even when it seems very apparent to everyone else around you. So awesome. Thanks for sharing. So I think similarly, Deidre, you have a very interesting background, having had leadership in terms of political campaigns and your own political campaign, nonprofit sector, the for-profit sector, through Kaleo Enterprise. Okay, I want to make sure I get it right. I want to put some respect on the name. Tell me a little bit about, what it is. Like, when was the moment you realized that you were intended to lead or be an entrepreneur?
I'll say that I believe personally that I have done tougher things than start a business. Not that starting a business is not a tough thing to do, but I was indoctrinated into small business ownership at a very early age. And so starting a business was just as common as working at a McDonald's or working in an office setting. I had family members around me who were great and successful entrepreneurs. I didn't know that necessarily was going to be my route, but I knew it could be an option if I needed it in the long run. And I ended up starting my business while I was an undergrad. I was working for a bank at the time, and it was during the brink of the recession. We were testing products and services with small business owners to try to see what they needed and what would be the most effective product and service for them. And this group of entrepreneurs wasn't the traditional group of entrepreneurs. Many of these folks were entrepreneurs out of necessity because they were getting laid off from their jobs. And so as we're doing focus groups on products and services, we're also asking questions just on how their businesses run. And I started seeing gaps that they had with marketing and the barriers to entry to start their business, so on and so forth. And I had mentors in my life. I had been doing marketing for a bank, felt like I had a few expertise that I could offer these businesses. And so I started doing this pro bono, and it ended up blooming into a business. And it wasn't a traditional pay for fee services that most businesses in marketing might have. What I did is went the nonprofit direction, knowing that many of these businesses needed these services, but could not afford them, let alone consider prioritizing them for their business. And so I worked with a local nonprofit who then funded a program that allowed me to then start really digging deep with business owners. And it was transformational for me, because being able to offer something to someone that they may not necessarily be aware of, or if they're aware of it, they may not know how to use it. And
Right.
once they tap in and use it, it enlightens their world, it enlightens their own experience. Kind of like you, Anya, your husband was, giving you that push, like, you have something here. And that's what most people, most business owners, let alone people, need to know, is that you have something to offer. And you may not have all the skill sets to get it on the market, but to be a part of that village to help them get it to the market and it be successful was incredibly transformational for me, and really led and motivated me to try to show people as a whole what they're capable of, given the village supporting the work that they do.
Yeah. I really appreciate both of you guys' perspectives on kind of this. We're kind of debunking the self-made kind of mantra that is American culture. And it's like, we all need help. We all need either somebody who's that cheerleader, somebody who is saying it's worth taking that leap of faith. People who are investing in you, whether it's their time or their talent or their treasure, to kind of get things off the ground. And it's not uncommon, even in leaders and entrepreneurs, to have this thought of like, well, I don't necessarily know I need to monetize this, or I'm going to do this in kind because I'm filling a gap for others. So doing it out of a place of service, as opposed to having money at the forefront of your mind. And I just believe when you walk in your purpose, the dollars will follow. Like, I am a firm believer in that. And I feel like you guys are a testament to that for sure.
Absolutely. I think you make an excellent point. This idea of, I did it all by myself. I pulled myself up by my bootstraps. We are not in this world to live on our own. We're all equally a thread in this tapestry, and we've got to play our role. And whoever we butt up to in this tapestry is our village. But there are no self-made individuals. There are no self-made individuals. Everybody got some help in some form or fashion from someone or something. And the fact that anybody could think walking around on this earth that they did it on their own, man, take those rose-colored glasses off just for a minute, because you capable of a whole lot more than if you've made it and you think you made it on your own. You've got so much more in store. Open up, honey.
I was just going to add to that and say how much that resonates with me. And as a CEO and starting to have employees, I was having these feelings of like, oh, I have to be the CEO, and feeling like that meant I needed to make decisions on my own. And, I needed to be the one who could do it. And I feel like that is partly why women make the best leaders, is because we're so collaborative. And I let go of that cultural feeling that was kind of put on me by other examples in the business world. And I let that go. And I realized, no, I got here because I value community, because I listen, and because I don't have it all the answers. And I know that I need to have humility, and that other people are lifting me up. And so I think that's so, so important to lead, and to not let being in a leadership position change you and strip that from you.
Yeah. Well, and I think we're hinting at like this perceptions, right? Perceptions that when you've arrived, whether it's in that CEO position or that executive director position, that you're kind of finished. So what I'm interested in is for you guys, how can you share with the folks who perceive that once you've arrived, once you've taken on this leadership role, that there's still room for growth? What are you doing to still grow in your leadership?
So this idea of you've arrived, from my vantage point, is translated in my head to you are positioned. You are positioned in such a way that you now can fulfill your purpose given the pathway that you're on. I sat with the founder of Business Publications a few weeks ago, and I felt like I had learned her story and heard her story in more ways than one over the years. But there was one small detail that she shared with me, and like you, I came over on the 40 side this year, and one of the things that she said to me was, I didn't start this business until I was 41, 42. And I could have fell out on the couch like, what? I mean, to me, Business Publications is an empire that has tentacles that stretch not only across the state, but across this country. And it is a trusted entity in our community. And the fact that she built this and she started building it after the age of 40 was just remarkable to me. And it was also inspirational to hear it, because here I was thinking, okay, what else do I have left in the tank? What else is it for me to achieve? Should I shrink my dreams at this point in time? Am I on the other side of the hill? And hearing her say that, it just inspired me to say, no, honey, you're just getting started. Keep going, keep dreaming bigger. We're never to the point where we've really arrived. We're just positioned to add value, perhaps in different spaces with different people at a different point in time.
Absolutely.
So how are you investing in your growth, Anya? How do you continue to kind of push the envelope?
And it looks different at different stages, and having business structure more established and figuring out how to grow as a business. And, you think you have one thing figured out, and then you realize, oh, for me, being confrontational when I need to be. I'm a very non-confrontational person. And so I would get so bogged down by people asking me for things that were inappropriate because I had a hard time saying no. And so I'm always stretching myself because I have to, because I'm here in this position, and it's like, okay, I've built this. I have to protect it. I have to protect myself. I have to protect my family. I have to protect my employees. So I have to learn how to have boundaries. And I think that being an entrepreneur and being a CEO of my business and a leader in the space has forced me to work on those things, because it's either I let them be a detriment to myself and to all the other things that I'm working on and that I'm striving for, or I fix them, or I confront them. And it's just been so interesting to me how the work reveals my weaknesses. It keeps bringing them to my attention, and then I have these opportunities to address them and to try to work on them. And I'm genuinely grateful for that, because even though it's hard, it's helped me to grow. And I value that so much, because I think that sometimes life can stagnate when we're doing the same thing over and over again. And I love that about entrepreneurship, is that it's always keeping me on my toes. So I have no delusions about having arrived anywhere. It's really about it's all in service of the life that I want to lead and the impact that I want to have. And that's not going to end at any point in my life. Even if I'm done running a business, I'm still going to be trying to have an impact however I can in my community. So the work's never over. It's just about, how can it be sustainable? How can I grow so that I can cope with it and I can handle it and I'm not burning myself out? And that's a lifelong journey.
Yeah.
I think that's the part where I think people look forward to, quote, the arrival, because it's like, whew, I can breathe now, I can rest. Mm-hmm. We don't have to wait until we get a title or a role, and we shouldn't wait until we get a title or a role to rest. We just got to incorporate it into our lifestyle, because, that is what fills our cup back up. And there was a point in time in my life where my cup was empty. I mean, dry. If you've seen a glass where the water's been gone for like several days and it's crusty, that's where I was at. And I had to take a step back to fill my cup up. But it got that bad because I didn't take the time. And so when you're talking about what can you do for yourself, take a break, and people will be upset. People will have qualms. We might miss out on a thing or two in the process of taking that break, but it is so incredibly necessary for us to rest. We are high performers as women anyways, and not to say that the gents aren't, but we are high performers, and we pride ourselves in being high performers. And just as much as we want to perform, what happens behind the veil, behind closed doors, is just as important when we're out front.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think also like, and again, I hate the idea of like the juxtaposition of like, we're women and they're men and this is how we do it. And to me, it's not about that. The reality of what comes with this identity, though, is oftentimes you guys have said community. I can't even count you how many times since we've been on this call. So it's not just what we're doing for the business and then we go out and have fun. And get on the golf course or whatever. It is really about building community, building other people up, building infrastructure for other things. You didn't have to step into, public service and position yourself to run for an elected position. You didn't have to build, Anya, an entire brand, right, to support other people. You could have just taken care of self, and oftentimes we take care of community. So I definitely appreciate that. You know what else stands out to me is this idea that, and maybe it's because I'm in graduation mode with my daughter. She's going to be graduating this coming weekend, and everybody's excited right now, like, oh my God, they're finishing, when really commencement is what's going to happen. It means to begin. So each time each of you have hit, at least from what I know about you, you've hit like, oh, I got to this kind of pinnacle of this. You've taken on the next version of what that is and that new challenge to begin again. And I admire that deeply.
Yeah. And I also think that failure is part of that, and that I had to learn how to detach my value as a person from my success. That actually, I can fail. I'm allowed to fail, and I have to fail to grow. And there's so many things that I can learn from it, but it doesn't negate everything else about me, and it doesn't negate all of the good that I've done. And that's been something that I had to learn previously. If I did something that I felt was wrong, then I would just work harder. I just push myself more. And then I got to the point like you, Deidre, with my cup is just completely empty. And it's because I'm pursuing feeling validated. I'm pursuing self-worth, as opposed to losing sight of what the actual goal is, which is to help people, to live a good life, to be happy and fulfilled. And so many lessons to learn along the way. And I feel like it's a bit of a baptism by fire. You kind of have to go through it in order to discover that, oh, I didn't realize that I put my worth in success, because I had never been challenged in this way before. I had to go through it in order to learn that about myself.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. Leadership roles are often, from the outside, people perceive that you are infallible or that you don't get to make mistakes. Let's be real. Mistakes do happen. So maybe if we could start with you, Deidre, and then we'll kick it back to you, Anya. When you've made a misstep or you have failed, how did you use that experience to grow in your leadership?
How I do that now is different from how I used to do it. And that was a mistake, how I used to do it, which was being harder on myself than anyone else could actually be. And chastising myself about the mistake. That was the wrong way. I think it's one thing to come to terms with reality, but I think it's another thing to beat yourself over the head until you're pretty much unconscious and unwilling to do anything due to lack of motivation. And so what I have decided to do, there was this point in time in my life where I was like this type A personality, and I was claiming it and owning it. But what I realized was that type A was just code for me, and that I just needed to be in control of what was around me to give myself comfort. Now I don't necessarily need to be in control. I need to be present. I need to show up. I need to add value. Sometimes things have to play out the way that they need to play out around me without my hands being on them. And sometimes people have to make mistakes around me that could reflect on me, but it is a part of the growth process. From my vantage point, a mistake, a failure, a flip is just a bump in the road. So long as we have our head set on the goal, our eyes set on where we're trying to go, at least for me, that helps me get through with a little bit more resiliency than being hung up on what I should have done, what I could have done, and what I didn't do. And so I take ownership of mistakes. In fact, there's a group of folks around me that, sometimes have this idea, Deidre is perfect, or she's incredibly confident. Well, I'm confident about the things that I talk about, so I talk about those things more often. Those things I'm not confident about, you're not going to hear me talk about them, so you're not going to see a whole lot of lack of confidence.
That is a true politician. We're going to talk about the thing I want to talk about.
Yes, absolutely. Find somebody else to talk about those other things, but I'm just going to talk about what I know that I should talk about. And so what I will occasionally do for people who think of me a little bit higher, or put me on a pedestal that is a distraction, I make misstatements on purpose, and I'll show them that I don't know everything. I'll ask questions about things that I don't know about to help them understand in this communal space where it takes all of us. I'm not the only one carrying the load. I can lead us, but you have as equal part in making sure that we get to where we're going as I do. And so that to me is important. I am in the mindset of strengthening an ecosystem. I'm not giving up on people. I know I can't live on this world and accomplish what I need to accomplish on my own, which means I have to do a stronger job of empowering people around me to understand that they have value to add. And I've been on that empowerment kick for probably about 10 years or so, but now I'm seeing it at a different level. I'm empowering other leaders at this point in time. And to me, that's only going to strengthen our ecosystem.
Awesome. Anya, for you, when you have encountered a misstep or failure, how have you used it to grow?
Yeah, I really resonated with what you said, Deidre, because I've come to a similar place in my journey. At first, I took it very hard and I really beat myself up over it and felt like I'm not the right person for this job. It was a mistake to I'm not actually just kind of going down that whole rabbit hole of what I should have known better. But now I've come to a place where it's always a learning opportunity. If I can say, okay, what can I learn from this so that in the future we can avoid this, or, we can make it better. You can't always avoid everything, but positioning it as, or reframing it mentally as, every misstep is an opportunity to grow, and I'm human, and letting go of the ego. And I loved what you said about letting things play out, even if it reflects badly on you, because you're trying to build your whole ecosystem. You're trying to build your whole team. You're out for something more than just your name looking good. And that has also been part of my growth journey, to let go of some of that control, letting my team show me what they can do, and be open to their ideas. And maybe it doesn't always work out, but we can all grow together. And it's okay if we have some, even somewhat public, mistakes.
Imperfections.
Yes. Yeah. Imperfections. Yes.
We are perfectly imperfect, aren't we?
It's not necessarily healthy to project that you're infallible and perfect, because then there will come a time when it becomes extremely apparent to everybody that you made a mistake, and it looks worse because you projected that you had it all figured out the whole time. So showing up authentically and listening before you speak, asking the questions, showing the gratitude, showing the humility, apologizing for your mistakes. All of this is both like a personal value system that I have, but it's also a strategy because it doesn't force them, but it gives everybody around you an opportunity to accept you for who you are and to come together with you on a genuine, authentic, at a genuine, authentic place. And that's where you can lift each other up and they can see your true value and you can see their true value. So it's both internally with teammates, with other business partners that I'm doing business with. It's with my audience. It's with the end customer. Obviously, you don't just air all of your dirty laundry and just say everything that's going wrong all the time, but you can show up for everybody in an authentic way. And that can kind of curtail this perception of, I made, like we failed and everybody's mad, because you were always just being honest about what you could do. You weren't inflating all the problems that you could solve for everybody and, everything that you could achieve. I feel like that is kind of where the big problems come. It's because you project something that's untrue and then you can't fulfill on it. And then people are upset.
Yeah. Yeah. So I hear you saying essentially like, if you don't necessarily have to emphasize your flaws, but letting people know that in part of this human experiences, we are going to make mistakes and we should be able to make them safely and then move forward quickly, right? Learn from them. I'm going to get a hot take from each of you before we kind of wrap things up. We often talk about where it's challenging, how it's different for women in leadership or in entrepreneurship, or, different obstacles that you've overcome. I want to shift the narrative a little bit and maybe in 2 sentences or less, tell me what you find fun or inspiring about being an entrepreneur or being in a leadership role. All right, fine. If you need more than 2 sentences, that's fine.
I know that was the part that was tripping me up. Like, how do I say this in only one sentence?
Like looking up, like, where am I going to pull this from? So,
going through all of these issues that we've been talking about has brought me to a place where I get to enjoy it and I get to bask sometimes. And I feel like that's really the goal, right? So one of the things that I find most rewarding and fun is that I show up as myself and I am accepted for it. I found my community and I had to go out and make it. I had to go out and create it and get the people that I wanted to work with me and build the audience that likes me for who I am and kind of shut out all the noise. And to me, that has been such a validating and empowering and a confidence booster that there are people out there that want what I have to offer. And I find that extremely rewarding that there's this both a benefit to me and a benefit to them. I'm not just giving everything in service of everybody else and losing myself. I get to enjoy it too. And I get some of the rewards as well. So that cross section of everybody's benefiting here. And I can go to sleep at night knowing that no one is being shortchanged in my business, that we're all benefiting. And that is a really satisfying feeling.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing. Deidre,
what's your... way more than 2 sentences. Sorry.
That's okay. It's totally okay. Deidre, what's your hot take?
My hot take on fun. I mean, I definitely enjoy myself at work, and what I find a great deal of joy in is watching others bloom and make impact. I love to see people proud of themselves. If there's one thing that I will shed a tear over, it is someone's joy about their ability to get through in order to get to and accomplish something. So I find a great deal of fun. And that I will say, my other 2 sentences is that I have been a compartmentalizer in my past, and I'm on this journey of decompartmentalizing. Fun had a bucket, and I'm trying to make sure that fun is threaded through everything. And so that takes intentionality. Yeah, I'm in the process of working through that. But on the job, that is what it's fun for me to see other people, and it's fun for me to take on a challenge and actually accomplish what I set out to accomplish. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I hear you guys saying, on one hand, being able to bask in what you've created, not just in the community that became a product, but also in the work environment that you've created for others, where people can succeed. And then also this element of like, I'm watching how I build other people and how they take a sense of pride in what they do, and how I might encapsulate that is like the ripple effect. You're watching the ripple effect of what you started, and that's beautiful. You've given our listeners a lot to think about, and I'm certainly inspired in what you've shared. I will say this in reflection. I hear the tone of maybe we should be thinking about how we could make our younger self proud and holding reverence for that, because we're doing important work. I think I hear a tone that's connected to making sure that we create space for rest, because you're constantly kind of refining and rebuilding and retooling as you ascend in your career, no matter how high up the chain you are. And I also hear this tone about, for some people, it might take listening to the voices around you to inspire you to take that leap into entrepreneurship or leadership, or observing what you've seen from others, whether it's in your family or in your circle, and the successes that they've created to find that inspiration. The most important piece in all of this is both of you have very different paths. I always think that sometimes people get caught up on the path with and not as focused on the purpose. If you walk in your purpose, the world opens up to you. And so it's been an enlightening conversation. I thank you guys for joining me today. And for our listeners, I want to remind you to be bold, be brilliant, and be fearless.